Drive, Marie's story. She is 36. It started with the virus, when Leslie was 3. It had a way of triggering it. She and her dad both got the flu. Viruses have a way of unlocking dormant genes, but I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. But that's when it all changed. She started to regress. She stopped potty training. She started acting out. She started kicking and biting. The kid who was seemingly well-adjusted was gone overnight. She had become a different child in just a couple of months. It was fast. That was the start of the meltdowns. My marriage fell apart. Her dad was becoming a person he wasn't when we met. He was dealing with his own health issues, and all of the events toppled one on another. It was the beginning of the end. We divorced. Daycares wouldn't take her. I couldn't leave her with any family or friends for an extended period of time. It made it hard to hold down a job. I felt helpless. I just didn't know how to help my kid. I really didn't know what to do, and I had very few resources after the divorce to figure it all out. I had to move into my parents' for a year, but they became exhausted. I was able to get a job at a local daycare center. They were great, and I could take Leslie to work with me. There were other kids there for her to play with, and she still had some meltdowns, but there were other staff members who could help me. And I wasn't alone. And then she started school. The first few years were tough. She'd run out, she'd kick and scream at her teachers, and I was getting calls every other day. I'd cringe when I hear the phone ring. I knew it was them calling about Leslie, but despite her behavior, she is brilliant and was placed in the gifted and talented program. When she was in that program, that's when she got bullied. All of those kids are so smart, and they know how to get away with it. But I caught one of those kids bullying her one day with my own 2 eyes. I couldn't believe it. But then there were those parents of those kids, and I never thought I'd get upset saying this. It just seemed like all of the kids were picking on her. The adults would just roll their eyes. There was no control. The other kids and their parents stayed away from us. They'd whisper and look in horror. We were rejected by all of the others. That's how it felt. You know that song from Dumbo, Baby Mine? I used to sing it to Leslie to ease the pain. To ease my pain. I don't think she ever really knew the real meaning behind the song, but for me, I could relate. They eventually kicked her out of the program. The teacher said that Leslie was too stressful for her, and she didn't belong. Leslie's behavior was awful, I get it. But that teacher just wasn't willing to adjust or willing to teach her. Isn't that a teacher's job? She kept a journal on Leslie. Everything she did, her meltdowns. How did the teacher even have time? She didn't do it to be helpful. She did it to prove a point to me that my child was out of control. That wasn't helpful. We were referred to Ball State Counseling. We were assigned a doctoral student. He was nice, but clearly still learning. I shared the teacher's journal with him, but after hours and days of observing Leslie, he determined there was nothing wrong. Her pediatrician referred us to Riley. She felt that Leslie had been sexually abused. She wanted an exam. I took her to Riley and had to put my 7-year-old daughter through all of that, when I know that she hadn't been abused. For them to tell me that she hadn't, that's when the doctors determined that we might be dealing with autism. A few months later, as Leslie entered the 2nd grade, she was finally diagnosed with Asperger's. But there's a relief in knowing. All of those years of not knowing, we finally had an answer. The doctors wanted to start medication immediately. I refused. To this day, Leslie doesn't take medication for her Asperger's. She's adjusted well over time. We've still not told the school system and don't plan to. Labels can create a divide, not just with other students, but it puts stigma on her that teachers can't fail to recognize. Now, as a teenager, she has some kids who pick on her, but she doesn't get it. It bounces off her. She's in her own universe. That's good, I guess. Very few things affect her, good or bad, but I want her to build deep relationships with people. Most of her relationships are with inanimate objects. It's taken me a while to adjust to that, but that's her world. She's obsessed with anime, Japan, all of it. She doesn't get social cues, and she'll talk about a topic more than people would like to hear, but that's part of it. Her Pokemons are an extension of her. She takes them to school, but the rule is that they have to stay in her locker. She has friends. They're all either Asperger's or ADHD. They naturally gravitate toward each other. It's just natural because they have so much in common. Like Leslie, most of the high-functioning kids aren't labeled through the school system. I worry about her independence. She wants to go to college. She's brilliant and would excel. I have no doubt that she'd make a great scientist or an artist. But she would go days without showering if I didn't prompt her. She hoards. It's part of it. She can't let go of inanimate objects because of the relationships she develops with things. Her room is a mess, beyond just teenager messy. I worry what life will be like with her on her own, away at college. She's supposed to get her license in a year. That worries me. Not just as a parent, but it worries me to think about her behind the wheel of a car. She wants to drive, and it's a rite of passage. So I'm still considering the options. But college? I don't know. I think she can make it, but we need to make it one day at a time. She might really surprise us all. Let's focus on the driving first.